Hi guys, Mehrnoush here from Ross IELTS Academy. I'm here today to talk about one of the most challenging parts in IELTS writing, Task 1 reports. The thing is that when you plan to take the academic IELTS exam, you find yourself struggling to write factual reports in Task 1, like bar chart, line chart, maps, and etc. You know that well. But you should exactly know what you're expected to do when writing it, because the examiner won't judge you based on his or her general idea. All examiners have a band descriptors based on which your score will be given. Like, do you need to use collocations? What grammatical structure should you apply? How about the paragraphing or the ideas that you should develop? Can you go off the topic if you don't have information about the given question? Once you get to know about the criteria, you'll get the answer to these questions, seeing how differently you look at the writing tasks. In this video, I will teach you all about academic IELTS task 1, writing structure, and the criteria in details. So make sure to watch it carefully and take notes. After you got some practice, you can use our writing correction service visiting our website, www.rossielts.com. You'll send us your writings and the examiner gives you written and video feedback based on the criteria, showing the techniques that you can apply to get your targeted score in a short time. By the way, we have launched our official immigration office to help you guys with all the information you need to apply to the universities and live abroad. You can find the link to it in the video description. Let's now get started. As you know, IELTS writing is in two different formats, academic and general, and both modules consist of two tasks, Task 1 and Task 2. The overall writing will take 1 hour, 20 minutes for Task 1 and 40 minutes for Task 2. In Task 1, you will be asked to write a factual report about the given information in 20 minutes. This task should be written in at least 150 words in response to a particular graph. For example, a bar graph, a line graph, a pie graph, a table, a map, or a process. A process shows how something works or how something is done. Your overall band score in IELTS writing will be out of 9. Generally, you should pay attention to some points in this task. First of all, remember that this report should be exactly based on the facts that you're given in the chart. This means that you should read the question statement very carefully and pay attention to what you see in the chart, the numbers, percentages, names, and then write your report directly and clearly about them. Secondly, this task should be in at least 150 words, and you will only have 20 minutes to write that. So you should try to do that in this limited time. Make sure to finish it in the 2 minutes. Otherwise, you will have to dedicate your Task 2 time to this one. And this way, you fail to finish your essay in Task 2, and that's a bigger problem. Besides, regarding the word count, if you're taking the paper-based exam, you should leave yourself enough time at the end of the test to count the words you have written, to make sure it is 150 words or more, but no less. The next thing is to avoid using phrases like "I think" or "in my opinion." You're always asked in the question to summarize the information, which means that, on one hand, you should report a summary of all the facts and figures that you see, and on the other hand, you are not allowed to give your personal opinion about anything. So, using phrases like "I think" or "in my opinion" will definitely lower your score. The bar chart shows the divorce rates in 2 European countries from 2011 to 2015. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. As you can see here, we have a bar chart. The first thing we see is the topic statement and the question you're asked in the box. The question statement says, "The bar chart shows the divorce rates in 2 European countries from 2011 to 2015. And what we are asked is to summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features and make comparisons where relevant. So, as I mentioned earlier, we have to summarize what we see and only talk about the main figures and features in the writing. Okay, now that we have a general idea about academic writing task 1, let's take a look at the band descriptors to see based on what details we will be evaluated. As you can see, there are 4 criteria in IELTS writing. Now we'll see what we should do in each one to boost our score. The first one is task achievement or task response. This criteria refers to how you develop the topic and address different parts of the question. So, you should identify the key features. This means that you should read the question statement very carefully and then look at the given chart. Identify the most important features and only talk about those throughout your writing and not about each and every number, figure, and detail you see. The second thing is to report the key features generally in the overview. Okay, what do I mean by overview? This can be the second or the last paragraph of your writing, the overview paragraph. Generally, this is one of the paragraphs, and that's where you talk about those key features you found before. So, you identify the most important features and talk about them in this paragraph. But, as it should be very short, you don't get into any details here. Where should the details go? Here. The next paragraphs. So, you should report the key features with the specific data in details paragraphs. Exactly. In the details paragraphs, you get into the detail of what you had generally talked about in the overview paragraph. By specific details, I mean the numbers, names, percentages, and etc. The next thing you should do is to write 150 words or more. And once again, this task should be written in at least 150 words. It means that it can be more, but not less. Otherwise, you will lose mark in this criteria. So, you shouldn't write about everything you see. Of course not. Only the key features, as we are asked in the question itself to summarize the information. You should not report data in the overview. As I told you, the data and details should be written in the details paragraphs. You should not use inaccurate data. Why would you even do that? Stick to what you see and report that with no change. And you should not include personal opinion. Okay, in this task, unlike task 2, you will never be asked to talk about your personal idea. So, no expressions related to that should be used either. You should not write a conclusion. This task is not like task 2 essay in which you had a conclusion paragraph. There is no such paragraph here because concluding means giving your own opinion on the whole thing, and that's exactly what we don't need here. So these were all the important details related to this criteria. By paying attention to those, you will get a higher score in this one. Moving on to the second criteria. The second criteria is the coherence and cohesion. This criteria refers to how clear and organized your writing is. So, you should, firstly, have a clear structure. It means that your paragraphs and the expressions you use should be clear. The second thing is to organize information logically. It means that all the information you mention in the paragraphs should be related to each other. In other words, not only should you logically organize the information within the paragraphs, but also the paragraphs themselves should be related to each other. The third thing is to use linking words appropriately and accurately. This one is super important. You shouldn't only use and, so, but, because. Look for more advanced alternatives. Where? On our YouTube channel. There are some videos about all of that. Make sure to watch them. The next thing is to use referencing like it, they, this, and etc. We actually use referencing in order to avoid repeating the same words. This will show the examiner that you have a good command of English. So, you shouldn't write one long answer. The length of the paragraphs and the number of the sentences you use in them matters a lot. It shouldn't be like one paragraph is too long and the other one is too short. You shouldn't try to get marks by using lots of linking words. As I said, it's important to use a range of connectives, but you should not use them in every single sentence you write. That would be overusing them, which will mark you down. The third thing that you shouldn't do is to find comparisons that are actually not there. You should exactly compare the figures and data and numbers which are relevant to what you see. Don't go off the topic. Now let's talk about the third criteria, your lexical resource. This criteria refers to the range of vocabulary you use besides the correct spelling of them. So, you should use a range of vocabulary. You should not limit yourself to the words you see in the question statement. Instead, try to paraphrase the question statement in the introduction paragraph. Besides, use direct synonyms in your own answers throughout the whole essay. Our writing course can be very useful for you, as you will get to learn about the useful vocabulary and expressions that you can use in this task in order to provide a range. You can visit our website to find it. The second thing you should do is to use vocabulary for describing data accurately and appropriately. It is important to use a range of words. What's more important than that is to use just the words that you're 100% sure about. So, if you feel like what you are using is not correct or appropriate in the sentence, don't use it. Think about accuracy first. The next thing is to use appropriate collocations. So, other than the vocabulary, you should also use collocations in this task. Collocations are the group of words that go together and give a different meaning. For example, to do homework, to eat in moderation, to make an accomplishment, eating habits, and etc. Many collocations. So, you shouldn't misspell the words. As I mentioned earlier, it is more important to be error-free, only using what you are totally sure about. So, be careful with the spelling of the words, how you write them, because you are likely to misspell several words as you are writing very quickly. To avoid that, leave yourself enough time at the end of the task to revise the writing for spelling errors. Don't use words or sentences that you are not 100% sure about. Don't repeat the same words from the question or data source. Instead, you should paraphrase by using direct synonyms. And finally, the last criteria, your grammatical range and accuracy. This criteria refers to the range of structures, tenses, and the proper punctuation marks you use. So, you should use appropriate structures. What matters is, first of all, to use the correct grammatical structures, only the ones you are sure about. Secondly, you need to apply some complex ones other than the simple structures. By complex structure, I mean relative clauses, subordinate clauses, compound sentences, conditional sentences, and so on. To learn them well, search for its video on our YouTube channel. That includes everything you need. You should also use the correct tense. Other than the grammatical structures, you need to use a range of tenses. Don't just stick to the simple ones. Instead, use more advanced ones throughout the whole writing, like, for example, present perfect continuous, past perfect, future tenses, and etc. You should use accurate punctuation. Punctuation is also something that is very important and you should be careful with in this criteria. This means how you use some punctuation marks like comma, full stop, question mark, and etc. There are 2 videos on our YouTube channel about punctuation. Watch them to solve this problem before the test. So you shouldn't make careless mistakes. Be careful with your grammar mistakes. Your first priority should be being error-free. Secondly, don't try to use as many different structures as possible. You should use a range of structures, but naturally. If your only focus is to use the structures, then you wouldn't pay attention to other things. So try to be natural and clear. In this video, we learned what academic IELTS writing task 1 looks like and based on what criteria will be evaluated. Now, you'll need to take a second to look at the writings that you had written before and edit them based on the criteria we learned together. Thanks for watching this video to the very end. Stay tuned and see you very soon.